It was a moonless night when I found myself stranded on a desolate highway. I was an 18-year-old college student driving back home after a late-night study session. My gas gauge had been blinking empty for miles, and my heart pounded as I coasted to a stop in the darkness. I stepped out of my car, trembling in the biting cold, and surveyed the empty road ahead. The silence was deafening, interrupted only by the faint rustling of leaves in the chilling wind. Desperation gnawed at me, and I prayed for a good Samaritan to come to my rescue. Just when despair threatened to consume me, I saw headlights approaching from the distance. A feeling of relief washed over me as a sleek black sedan pulled up beside my car. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out, his features obscured by the shadowy night. He offered a warm smile and introduced himself as James. With gratitude in my heart, I accepted his offer of help. He had a can of gas in his trunk and kindly poured it into my tank. As the engine roared to life, I felt a glimmer of hope. But as I turned to thank James, his smile seemed a little too wide, his eyes a bit too intense. I began to feel uneasy, sensing that something was amiss. My instincts screamed at me to be cautious, and I tried to retreat to my car. But James grabbed my arm with a grip like steel and pulled me towards him. Fear surged through my veins as I realized the sinister truth. James wasn't here to help. He had lured me into his trap. I fought with all my strength, breaking free from his grasp, and sprinted back to my car. The engine roared to life and I sped away, leaving him standing in the dark. My heart raced as I drove, glancing in the rearview mirror to ensure he wasn't following. I made it to the nearest gas station, and as I filled up the tank, I couldn't help but wonder about the true intentions of the man who had seemed so kind at first. The advice I want to impart to all who listen to this chilling story is this: trust your instincts. Sometimes darkness hides behind a friendly smile. When you find yourself in a vulnerable situation, be cautious, stay aware, and never underestimate the kindness of strangers, for it may come with sinister intentions. As I drove down that dark and lonely road, my heart pounded like a jackhammer. The only source of light was my car's dim headlights slicing through the inky darkness. I could barely see beyond the road's edge, and the dense forest that bordered it seemed to swallow any hope of escape. The feeling of isolation clawed at my nerves. My gas gauge had been hovering just above empty for miles, and now the needle finally surrendered to gravity, plummeting to E. Panic welled up inside me as my engine sputtered, then died. Stranded alone, on a desolate road that seemed to lead to nowhere. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. I was truly on my own. Desperation gnawed at me. I had no choice but to get out and check under the hood. As I popped the hood, a shiver coursed through my spine. The night was so quiet, not even a distant cricket's chirp broke the silence. I felt watched, vulnerable, and exposed. I fumbled with the flashlight on my phone, trying to illuminate the engine. That's when I saw it. A tiny rivulet of gasoline seeping from a cut in the fuel line. Fear gripped me. Someone had tampered with my car. My mind raced as I realized that someone could be lurking in the darkness watching me. I had to get out of there, but my feet felt like lead. With trembling hands, I managed to patch up the fuel line, but the damage was done. I needed to find help, and quickly. Just as I closed the hood, I heard a rustling in the underbrush nearby. My heart leaped into my throat. I could barely see anything in the shadows, but my instincts screamed the danger was closing in. I ran back to my car and locked the doors, my breath coming in panicked gasps. That's when I saw him, a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. His face was obscured by a hood, and he moved slowly towards my car, his intent unknown but undoubtedly malevolent. With trembling fingers, I started the engine and peeled out of there, tires screeching on the asphalt. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see what was behind me. My heart raced as I sped towards the nearest town, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that sinister figure in pursuit. The nightmare on that dark and lonely road will forever haunt me. I was almost another statistic, another victim of some unknown malevolence. My advice to anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation: trust your instincts, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the darkness that can hide in the quietest of places. I had just finished my grueling night shift at the hospital. The air was thick with exhaustion as I made my way to my car, parked at the far end of the dimly lit parking lot. The flickering overhead lights cast eerie shadows that danced in the gentle breeze. Little did I know, this night would become a nightmare I'd never forget. As I approached my car, I noticed something odd. The faint smell of gasoline hung in the air. I crouched down and saw it. My fuel line had been tampered with, a clear attempt to leave me stranded. Panic coursed through my veins. I had to get out of there. With trembling hands, I dialed for help. While on the phone, I glanced around, my heart pounding. That's when I saw him, a man standing in the distance. He was lurking in the shadows, watching me. A shiver ran down my spine. I ended the call and locked myself in the car. The man didn't move. His piercing eyes never left me. I started the engine and slowly backed away, my eyes locked on him. He stepped closer, his face twisted with malice. I hit the gas and sped away, leaving him behind. But my ordeal was far from over. I found solace in a well-lit gas station, my heart still racing. As I filled up, an attendant approached me, a middle-aged man with a sinister grin. "Late night, miss? You should be careful out here." His words sent a chill down my spine, but I dismissed it as paranoia. The night had already been bizarre enough. I paid and hurried back to my car. That's when I realized my wallet was missing. It must have happened while I was talking to the attendant. I had to go back. I returned to the gas station, my steps hesitant. The attendant was gone, and a creepy silence filled the air. I found my wallet hidden behind the counter. As I grabbed it, a voice whispered from the darkness, "You're lucky." I spun around, and there he was, the man from the parking lot. Panic surged through me, and I sprinted to my car, never looking back. My heart pounding, I drove home in a daze, feeling the weight of a chilling encounter that defied all reason. The lesson I learned that night was to always trust my instincts. In the face of danger, it's essential to stay vigilant and alert. The world can be a terrifying place after dark, where the line between safety and peril is thinner than we'd like to believe. I made it home, but I'll never forget the menace lurking in the shadows and the terror that accompanied me on that fateful night. So, remember, my friends, when you find yourself in a vulnerable situation, trust your gut and don't ignore the warning signs. Your instincts might just save your life.